Hey everyone, I hope you're having a beautiful day. I am interviewing a very special guest today, and part of the reason why this is so important to me because there is a hemp ban that's happening that is really detrimental to so many people and so many animals that use CBD and depend on CBD. And the person who I'm able to interview today is someone who I not only look up to, but who I am so grateful for because if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have had the best years of my life with my dog, Lily. It is because of Paige Figi, the mother of Charlotte Figi, who she is the reason why Charlotte's Web exists. And when I was going through the worst experience of my life, which was seeing my dog Lily suffer from 3 to 4 4 or 5 minute seizures a day, it was recommended that I try CBD because of Paige's advocacy and because of Charlotte's story and the healing benefits of CBD. So this is a huge deal for me. And I am so honored to have Paige Figi here. Paige Figi is a leading hemp and CBD access advocate, nonprofit founder, and speaker whose work has shaped the modern CBD movement in the United States. She rose to national prominence through her daughter, Charlotte's remarkable response to a high CBD hemp extract, a story that inspired the creation of Charlotte's Web and widespread awareness of CBD's therapeutic benefits. As executive director of the Coalition for Access Now and co founder of a Realm of Caring, Paige champions sensible hemp policy, consumer access, and regulatory reform for safe CBD products. Paige, thanks so much for being here with me today. It is truly an honor and a pleasure.
Thank you, Lee. It's an honor to be here. You are. I'm obsessed with your sanctuary, with your organization. I'm a dog lover, and yeah, I'm just really grateful. To see you carry the advocacy for this. Not that you have a need state, but I'm very grateful it can feel lonely out here in the government work and the reform work, and it's nice to feel that we have a similar origin story. It's nice to see other people that care about CBD. This has been my life's work for 15 years now. So,
Yeah, thank you. And it really is so crazy when I read about you. I honestly hear the same words that I tell people of how I found CBD for Lily, trying all the different medications, um, just so badly not knowing which way to turn and almost giving up and finding this safe supplement, the only thing to ever help her. Can you, for people who don't know you, because I don't want to kind of tell your story, but I get very passionate. So just know if I interrupt you, I'm just like so jazzed about what you're saying. So, and it's probably my ADHD. But can you share about how you kind of started advocating for CBD in Charlotte and just your story for people who may not know it?
sure, yeah, and yeah, our stories are so similar, and
Yeah.
that camaraderie, it shows validity. You're not
Mhm.
crazy. What you're seeing, people are simultaneously, separately, in isolation, seeing the same thing. We're not crazy. This is an efficacious what should be, what will be a supplement, and so it's valid, and it's nice. It's just that feeling right now of discussing this, that our origin stories, and I'll tell mine briefly. Um, yeah, it can be scary and lonely out there to try something outside of the box. My story started with just out of necessity, as the mother of invention,
Mm.
was my daughter Charlotte. So Charlotte was born, three children. She was a twin, healthy, normal child, but from 0 to 4 years old, her life was a medical catastrophe. She was born with Dravet syndrome, which is one of the worst kinds of epilepsy. It's pediatric, untreatable, catastrophic epilepsy. So it's called pediatric. It's not. They usually don't live to adulthood. It's intractable epilepsy because it isn't treatable by medication. You try everything. You put them on every drug, but they don't work. and then you just slowly watch them dwindle away. Charlotte's seizures, by the time she was 4, were every half hour, and they're about a half an hour long. Her longest was 4.5 hours. I'm a tonic-clonic, a massive grand mal seizure, life support, oxygen, flight for life.
And how many of those, like, how often was she having these seizures?
She'd have one every half hour, so she'd have about 50 a day.
And what's your like, what is that? I don't mean to bring up old
No,
trauma. What is that like to respond to that? Like, what do you get used to it? I don't mean to sound so cold.
yeah,
Like when Lily would have her seizure, I remember feeling, not to sound selfish, but it's like so much tension in my chest that every time she had a seizure, I was like, man, I feel like I'm having it with her. Just being so worried all the time. What is it like? I could never imagine. I mean, for 4 years, how did you emotionally and physically respond to that?
the first seizure is the worst, and if you have
100%. Yes.
a
Sorry,
dog
but
or
yes.
an animal with seizures, the first is the worst. After a couple tens of thousands, I would lay her on the dog bed so her siblings and I could finish dinner or get something done. It sounds insensitive, but there were so many. So you do get
Right.
desensitized, but the
Right.
first 100 seizures are absolute. You're watching somebody die, and you're attached to the if you have children, if you have pets,
Yeah.
you are going through it with them. It's why they put kids with seizures in horror movies. It's absolutely, it's a devil possession is
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
hysterically it was witchcraft, and these are possessed by Satan.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
and because it's so absolutely the scariest thing you can imagine is a child having a seizure, and it's in every horror film.
Right. Right.
So it's tragic. I think we
I
all
never
have
thought about that. That's a really good point. I never thought about that. Yeah.
watched a loved one or a pet go through a massive seizure. You have probably a traumatic memory. You probably have PTSD from it. It's very difficult. So imagine what that person, that patient, that animal must feel like. And it's, and unless you're a talking, feeling, able to express yourself person, you can't really communicate what it feels like after a seizure. So it's really
Right.
interesting to talk to adults who are, higher functioning, who have epilepsy, severe epilepsy, what it feels like. It can take weeks. It can take about 2.5, 3 weeks, to get over, to recover just from one single seizure that's longer than 3 minutes long.
I and how like, did you eventually even get introduced to CBD? Like, what how because I the only reason I got introduced to CBD was because of you and Charlotte. It was I mean, this was when, everyone was talking about it. I believe CNN had just done a documentary. What was it called? Weed? Is that it? Yeah, I mean, so it was the way I was looking at it was, why not try it? Because I tried everything. How was CBD introduced to you?
Uh, I'm known to be a pretty tenacious person.
Mhm.
I was at the time we were Army. I was Special Forces wife. My husband was deployed, and Charlotte was seizing around the clock. She had failed her last drug, 4 years old. She couldn't walk, talk, swallow, breathe. So she was on oxygen. She had a surgical feeding tube. We fed
Oh
her,
my goodness.
and she was unconscious 99% of the day. And so we had nothing left. I always had another drug left in the cabinet, even if it was from another country. I would fight insurance and figure out a way to have that imported. We were out. We had nothing left.
Mhm.
So I literally just started looking at what was going to be the world's next epilepsy treatment. So
Right.
someone's always working on something. It takes about $800 million to get a drug through, to market. And so some researcher in somewhere is working on another seizure treatment. So I dug and dug and dug and found researchers in Israel, in France, and Brazil, where they
Mhm.
have more of freedom to study controversial substances. And they were studying high cannabidiol. We didn't call it CBD. We didn't have that acronym.
Right.
and it was high CBD, low in THC, non-intoxicating. We didn't call it hemp back then, and it was a Schedule 1 substance, the most dangerous substance in the country, in the United States. It was under that regulatory system, under the Controlled Substances Act. So,
Not to go off topic, but why do you think that is?
oh, there's a whole history
Okay,
from hemp, textile, paper. Look into all of the history of hemp. It was money. It was financial reasons why hemp was competing with the fiber and paper industry,
gotcha.
and it's very interesting. And it sounds like conspiratorial, but
Right.
it's factual, and it's gross, and it's just a fact. So I did not wish this came from a controversial source. Being a military family, I was an end of life kid. So at 4, at the worst of the worst of her life, she was put into hospice, so end of life care. I was feeding her and watering her and giving her oxygen, but we were counting the days and hours that she'd have. She was dwindling away. She couldn't walk. She couldn't do anything. And so we brought her home and put her in home hospice. The hospital said, we have nothing left to give her. Stop calling the ambulance. There's nothing to give her. And we were just kind of counting the hours. So I called I hired translators and with our limited budget, and called these researchers in Israel and asked them about what they were studying. They were in this phase 2 rodent trial, clinical
Hmm.
trial, and it was showing that it was a very powerful cannabidiol was a very powerful anticonvulsant in rats.
Can
And
you explain what a cannabidiol is for people who
it's
don't know?
just one component of hundreds of things in the plant that are non-intoxicating. It's an anti-inflammatory. So it's
Because
like,
people think that the plant is just purely THC, which is what gets you high, right? That's the huge misconception there.
I think up until that was 2010. I think up until that point, even if it was a marijuana state, and at the time there were 2 states that had a medical marijuana program, it was all called marijuana. There wasn't
Mhm.
hemp
Right.
wasn't differentiated. In Colorado, where I live, California, Washington was coming on board, or maybe had a law for medical, and really a lot of the people working in that regime of medical marijuana in their state were just breeding the THC higher. So I was purchasing medical cannabis and testing it in DEA labs to find something that had a CBD or a cannabidiol content. So I wasn't
Mm.
looking for high THC. I was looking for a specific ratio, and it just didn't exist. It was impossible to find. And
Until you found these researchers in Israel.
I found them, and then I found the Stanley brothers. So there was 7 brothers who were working together in the state of Colorado in medical cannabis,
Mhm.
but one of them was just sort of messing around in the back of their greenhouse in a breeding program, and he was aware of the same research that cannabidiol, the boring non-intoxicating one single compound in the plant, was showing promise medically, and he was messing around and breeding plants high in cannabidiol.
To explain, my audience, when we hear breeding, we think of backyard dog breeding. Can you explain to my audience when you say a breeding, what you mean by that, please?
So, and I am not a scientist or a farmer, but they're not planting this from seeds. This is high, almost like a laboratory environment where we're breeding plants. So
Right.
people who work in gardening breed all kinds of vegetables and
Exactly.
flowers and roses, and you can breed anything. You can breed the smell in, you can breed the smell out, you can breed the size of it. So they can do this with plants, and that's what
Right.
they were doing for a medicinal plant, and
Got it.
trying to parse out what parts of the plant are medicinal and what parts we didn't want to get Charlotte high. I had tested her, and she had a threshold for THC. It actually increased her seizures, which was you can't really increase a seizure when you're having 99% of your day seizing.
Right.
So that was a death sentence. So I really was trying to replicate and mimic this Israeli data. And then I
Right.
found people who were willing to do it. I had child protective services involved. I had the law enforcement, the governor, attorney generals. I mean, I really did it in a very conservative way because we were military, because she was the first, because she was end of life. People were watching in a way that was, like, what are you trying to do? I'm not an activist. I'm just trying to I'm a homeschooling mom, trying to raise my family. And so I did it with all of these people involved in the government watching and helping and just charting the data. No one had done this. And
Did you have their support?
no, I wouldn't say I had their support. I had their eyewitness. They
Okay,
were they were just witnessing this, and they did
understood.
not agree to help. They did not her.
So you're doing all this on your own. All of this is you.
Yep. But I mean, I was very accustomed to, it sounds crazy. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a, again, I'm a mom at the time. And I really I just was desperate.
Mm.
But I believed there has got to be something. There's got to be a solution for this syndrome. And, and, um, and so I was tenacious, and I had these people in these laboratories with everybody watching, and everyone was involved, even if they were going to throw me in jail. No one's going to take care of this child. She's an absolute medical, like I said, a medical tragedy, a catastrophe. We knew she was going to die, probably within weeks. So we knew whatever I was trying with her would probably be blamed for that death. But we were all fully
Wow.
aware. I was
I
sharing
I
this
didn't
data
even
with
think
everyone.
about that.
But
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Wow.
found these people that replicated what I was looking for. Once it was ready and tested and tested and tested, and this becomes important in our conversation here today further. Very regulated and tested. It needed to be reproducible. I had 9 very strict criteria before I even gave her a trial. They checked all those boxes. They agreed to help. Everyone's watching. We didn't think it was going to work. Nothing. I mean, I'm giving this kid barbiturates and opiates. Nothing worked.
Right.
We put it in her feeding tube in a measured dose. We wrote basically a clinical trial for one 4-year-old small child, and put it in her stomach port,
Mhm.
and her seizures stopped, completely stopped. She
How
didn't have
how
seizures
soon
for
after?
the first dose. So the first dose, she stopped seizing,
Oh my gosh.
started breathing, started swallowing, her eyes opened, started talking. She didn't have a seizure for the first 7 days. That's 350 seizures.
Yeah.
Massive, status seizures that don't stop on their own.
Right.
So,
This is your first sign of hope. I mean, this is your first sign that you're seeing something that works, yeah?
yeah, I mean, and I don't use that word lightly. I don't say the H word. And I have reasons why, but I don't. I just became hopeless, so I don't
Mhm.
use that word hope.
Yeah.
Uh, but I, I'm gonna try everything. I'm gonna follow every corner to the bottom of the earth. And she stopped seizing, and I thought it was a fluke. I thought it was the moon or her diet, or who
Yeah.
knows. I
Yeah.
thought. And so I honestly, it took about 100. I saw 100 more people have a similar result until I really believed that was a long span of months, but till I really believed it was, that's what was doing it, because we had tried everything. So obviously this was working. I got to hear her talk. I got to hear her say mommy,
Oh my god.
and really,
How old was she when she said that?
4. She was 4 years old.
Wow, so it worked quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I got to see a medical miracle. I'll and it
Yeah.
was,
I'm
and
laughing because I understand so well. Like, I'm laughing because I walked that road. You know what I mean?
yeah,
I walked that
I
road.
feel like am I crazy? And this,
Yeah.
so unfortunately, this didn't come from, like a tomato plant
What
or
what I love talking to you about it, and maybe this conversation will help me, is I don't feel I can, but I don't feel confident to share how much of a miracle I think it is because I have my own business. So there's that part of me that's sorry. There's this part of me that's has this insecurity of sounding like a salesman, right? But now when I get to hear stories like this, and I hear these a lot, but to have it in front of the person who ultimately inspired me to try it, it's just surreal. It's amazing.
Well,
And
that resonates with me because I don't sell anything. I don't make
exactly.
anything.
Right.
I intentionally because I didn't want to be seen as a smarmy. Not that you are. I'm not
No, I
saying
mean,
you are.
I could take it.
Yeah, no, you're not.
I'm
You're
just
not
kidding.
crazy. You're not crazy. You care, and you're seeing what you're seeing. And so I went on the nonprofit government regulatory side of things, just because I had to. Way back then, you would just be seen as a snake oil salesman if you were selling something.
Why do you think we even have to have this conversation? Let's just say ban aside, which I do want to talk about obviously, and I'd like you to please explain it to people. But why have you had to be an advocate and fight for this for so long? Like what has been created or told? Why would any why would anyone not why would anyone want to stop this or not have it so readily available to people who need it?
I think it's misinformation. I think that old mindset that weed and that's the marijuana industry, the government trying to crush the marijuana industry, it really sets things into people's brains. Advertising works, and I think that mistrust, that fear, I think it's fear. It's fear-based and it's money-based, honestly, in those
So
two words.
if that's the case, right? I think this is where a lot of people are really rightfully confused. So why is it if marijuana is now pretty much legal, not everywhere, but in a lot of states, how how is this hemp ban even happening? And what's happening? What is it? And what's the difference between marijuana being legal and this hemp ban being able to take place?
And let me go back just a step because I wanna be clear that I don't work on marijuana. I don't work on cannabis. I strictly work on this particular lane. So the Coalition for Access Now is my nonprofit. We're the consumer voice for the use of CBD or non-intoxicating hemp. I call it CBD as a catchphrase. There's CBG, there's CBN, there's other components of the plant. We're constantly discovering, but I'm just going to say CBD so
Yeah.
we all can just talk about the same thing. I know
And
that
and and side, I love CBN as well. Like I hope eventually we could talk about and introduce that to people as well. But agreed, the focus will be CBD.
So after Charlotte succeeded, I turned down media who wanted the sensational, provocative story about a mother giving her kid weed, smoking weed. She wasn't smoking anything, um, uh, and getting her high and her and epilepsy. And I turned it down for 18 months. And I said no to all these media stories. I wanted to share with other people that might have found a usefulness, but I was very careful because I was being we were the first, like she was patient zero. And so I was very cautious and I wanted to get the story right. We said yes to Dr. Sanjay Gupta and CNN. Even though he was opposed to marijuana, he called it a hoax publicly. His opinion was it's a big joke. People are just trying to get high. But he met Charlotte. We're friends to this day. They're filming like 10 of these documentaries, and Charlotte's sort of the thread through them all. They're on 9 right now. Weed 9. And back then it was all weed. And here's the point. So I told the story to CNN, and then people packed their cars and had to move to Colorado and then had to have an address, citizenship. People came from other countries and had to live in Colorado. And many of these families, I gave them 48 hours in my house. I said, you can stay here for 48 hours, just to have a soft landing. Another family's coming, and then you have to leave. And the coalition really started. I wanted to get these people home. I wanted to get them out of my house. And
Yeah.
and so we
But what
started it.
but these people are coming to your house to basically try CBD? Is
Yeah,
that is that what
they had to get on a waiting list. They had to have an address and live in Colorado.
and do
And
they
then
all have epilepsy, like the same diagnosis? Is it
first
all
Yeah, the first couple thousand were all pediatric
You
epilepsy.
had a couple thousand people stay in your house for
I
2
don't know how
days?
many people stayed in my house, but they all came at a very same time when they saw that people packed their cars Sunday night
Right.
after watching Weed 1 and just were like, "That's how desperate." I didn't realize there were other people in the same. I thought we were like the worst of the worst case, and we were the only ones in this boat,
And
but it
Weed
turned
1
out.
was the first documentary, just
Yeah,
so
Weed
people
1
listening,
was the
yeah,
first
and
CNN.
where can people see that if they wanted to watch that now?
I think that they still share it on their website on CNN.com, and you can watch all of them, and but yeah, the first couple thousand were pediatric epilepsy, so they were stuck in Colorado. So you had to live in Colorado, get on a waiting list for your medicine or whatever we're calling
Sh
it. Then
Yeah.
you couldn't leave the state, or you'd be drug trafficking a Schedule One substance across state line.
CBD.
CBD.
Unbelievable.
So they called them medical hemp refugees, and they were stuck there. So the coalition started. We went back state by state just to change the law just to get these families home, like Utah, Idaho, Georgia, Southern Republican states. And it was really fast. They're like, oh, we don't have a problem with this. And Louisiana, we're fine. Let's pass a law. I think the fastest bill was 28 days. That was Missouri.
Wow, wow.
Passed it in 28 days. Some of these states were unanimous. You can have CBD, you can move back home. They didn't want to know how you got it back home to that state, but you can possess it here without prosecution. And then and that's how coalition started. We were just trying to I never did this for Charlotte, for my daughter. We were legal in Colorado. We had access. We were good to go as long as I stayed in the state. It
Gotcha.
was just like we were watching thousands of people walking out of their wheelchairs on using only CBD, and like, we're not crazy. Let these people have this. They're also not high. You cannot overdose. They're not getting sick. This is crazy. This should be a supplement. So we went to the federal. We passed the law in 50 states. We helped work in 50 states, legalized CBD. We went to the federal government and said, this needs to be descheduled. This is Schedule One substance. That's crazy.
Right.
They agreed. And the second part of those early bills was, this needs to be regulated because something's going to happen. So descheduled, legalized for access, and regulated, so we know like what's in your container. Because I needed to know, almost like a pharmaceutical, how many milligrams, what are the additives, how is it made? The plant can have heavy metals in it, and we need to know what's in there. It needs to be tested
Right.
at the least. And so the federal government's like, hell yeah, let's do this. They descheduled it in 2018. They removed it from the Controlled Substances Act. They didn't reschedule. They just completely bumped it off the CSA. So it went from a Schedule One to descheduled.
Right.
But for the last 8 years, they did not get that regulatory component done.
Right.
So for 8 years, 8 years, it's been the Wild West. It's free access, totally legal. We have it for our pets. We have it for our children. You don't have to move zip codes anymore, but it's unregulated. So you don't necessarily know what you're getting unless you're doing what we were doing. The early moms, we were testing it ourselves, very expensive. We were demanding the companies who were making it, because I don't own a laboratory. We're asking them to test it, regulate it, grow it a certain way. I need to know that every single every drop is exactly the same forever. I need to be able to afford it. And so we did that ourselves, but we're asking, at the very least, the federal government should regulate this, like melatonin, like a
Exactly.
supplement, like a dietary supplement. And so that's the last skinny, boring mile we're on, is asking the federal government to finish what they started with descheduling hemp, and finish this by regulating this. We want regulation. I want a clear label. How do you get it? Through accurate testing.
And it not to simplify it, but because they haven't done that, because there's no regulation, is that partially why we're in this situation now with this hemp ban?
So people is actually, that hemp ban in November did not go through. If I wanted to pass a law
Can you explain
And
what the hemp ban is real quick, please? Can you tell people what?
so in this past November 25, two members of Congress, not 535, but two members of Congress, a senator and a congressman, wrote a bill, wrote language to ban the entire category. People argue, is it a complete ban? It's a 96% of the whole industry of hemp is banned. They wrote that into a bill instead of going through regular order, through hearings and committees and conferences. They snuck it into a bill that it was a must pass piece of legislation. It was the longest, if you remember, the longest government shutdown in history, in US history. The president had to sign this. Everyone had to sign off on it. That's where, if I were trying to sneak something through that couldn't make it through all of the regular process of a typical piece of legislation, I would stick it in a government reopening bill. So it passed and it was signed because we needed to reopen the United States.
Mm.
Um, Congress does not agree. It was a far overreaching, overstepping of that process. There was a Dr. Harris and Senator Mitch McConnell wanted, for very political reasons or even their own personal reasons, want to ban the products that came about, to your point, of the lack of regulation. So since they didn't get the regulation done in 7, 8 years, people figured out a way to make, now that, because it's legal everywhere, it's legal at 7-Eleven, you can buy CBD at a gas station. Not that you should, but you can purchase it anywhere. People figured out a way to make hemp intoxicating.
Well,
And
it is mostly that CBD at the gas station, isn't it? Isn't it where people are just taking it and adding all these different variants and
right.
crap to it that's making it unhealthy and a risk?
Well, the problem was more than that, oddly, which is important to me, is how clean it is, how healthy it is. The problem was it was intoxicating. And so people were buying it at 7-Eleven, getting high, instead of going to a cannabis dispensary and buying recreational marijuana. They could buy it over the counter. Not our intention. It's not a loophole, because these products did not exist when we passed the legalization of hemp. They didn't exist. They figured out a way to make a chemical process and make CBD intoxicating.
And why would they do, like, why not just regulate it? Why do a full-blown ban? You lightly touched on uh, the senator doing it for personal reasons. What could that be?
I can tell you from meetings, because I work in Washington, D.C., from meetings with these offices, these two members, not the 533 others, but two,
What are their names? The two?
Dr. Harris in the House and Senator Mitch McConnell in the Senate. And Dr. Harris would like to exist in a world that THC does not exist. So a bit of misinformation.
What would that personal benefit be to him?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe his constituency, they're against, but it's a very interesting district. If you look at their districts where they're elected officials, it's just misinformation, and it's also lobbying money. And so people want to get high and people want to make money, and they figured out a way to game the system, our legalization system, and we didn't work fast enough to regulate it, and now it's all going away.
No, I don't mean to sound like all conspiracy theorists, but this is just in the comments that I see a lot, and I'm just wondering if there's any weight to this. A lot of people think that this is because CBD is working and it's taking people away from pharmaceutical sales and over the counter stuff that maybe some politicians would profit from and all these different things. Do you think there's a possibility that there is some kind of dark intention here, that they they are aware that CBD is very much beneficial and
Yeah.
they don't want people taking it solely because it's costing them money in other ways?
So I wouldn't even call it a conspiracy or a dark intention. I'm fully aware of. We took the first couple thousand children using these very methodically tested and regulated products that we demanded, and I shared that data with a drug company. I wanted more tools in the toolbox. I That's what I want for everybody. Everyone should have access to more solutions. I shared that information, that anecdotal collected data with a drug company. They pushed their drug through to market, which is hundreds of millions of dollars, very expensive. And that drug was FDA approved for Charlotte's condition, Dravet syndrome. And because it worked, and it was a CBD molecule isolated in a drug. And so children with Dravet syndrome, very rare condition, can have access now. It can be paid for by your insurance company, and that company needs to pay back that price that it costs to get to market, 15 years and $800 million. So it's not even dark. It's just it's a business plan. They are on the Hill lobbying against CBD being a dietary supplement, which is what I'm fighting for. Dietary supplement regulation at the very, very least. It should have dietary supplement regulation. So that company, they're not out loud, they're not out in front. It's absolutely valid. They're there on the Hill. I see them. Why on earth would they not fight? They have to pay those bills back. They have to pay for this drug. Why would they let this be sold at Whole Foods as a supplement, or a Vitamin Cottage for, or at the, or at PetSmart?
They want to be the only one to sell it.
Yeah. Well, they also just have to recoup that cost. So I'm
Exactly.
all for like more tools in the toolbox, unless you're fighting against me, and then we're going to have to battle, and they'll probably sue me. And I don't know what that's going to look like, but yes, so there's absolutely pharmaceutical interests against this being a supplement. It's not that nefarious. It's just money.
What is it that people are digesting, consuming at these gas stations, the CBD? Like, what are these companies using to get people high, and why is it? Why wouldn't they just regulate it so that these things aren't added to it? And
So
just
I'll call them the catchphrase for those products, the new intoxicating hemp products, Delta products. So Delta 10 is a product that is it's made through it's synthesized hemp, and it's intoxicating. And because of the process used to make it, again, I'm not a scientist, but this is well-known information. They use a chemical process in the end product. There are chemicals, residual chemicals left behind. A child in Virginia, this is how this whole thing started, got a hold of their parents' candy and died.
CBD candy.
CBD Delta 10 can synthesized CBD. It wasn't CBD, it wasn't THC that
Go go.
killed the infant. It was the chemical, residual chemicals, acids and solvents, and the
Mhm.
child passed away. And that's how people react. I
Does
go
it
and
say
say,
it? Sorry, Paige. Does it say it on the ingredients? Does it say Delta 8 or Delta 10? Like when they're buying this CBD that looks like candy at these gas stations, is it saying all these toxic ingredients that are in there?
because the federal government legalized it but never finished to regulate it, it is not necessary. If I were selling acid and calling it candy or calling it CBD, I would not list it on my label. It is not by the law required. No, that's what I'm trying to fix.
Right. I mean, it's almost very similar to when, like right now, right, you can have let's say you're selling a bag of chips, and only a portion of the ingredients in the chips needs to be organic for you to put organic on the bag. It's very similar to that. Like they're pretty much lying
Yeah.
because they're allowed to.
Well, I
Uh,
look at it like melatonin, like any other supplement, like melatonin for sleep. You have to have a milligram amount. You have to know what's in the product. You have to have third party testing and an accurate label at the very least. And that's what we're asking for. Some people are arguing dietary supplement regulations don't go far enough. We want more, like food, like for chips or soda. But at the least, we should have, what did that baby eat? What
right.
was in there? And maybe the mother didn't even know, and she went to jail for
So
that.
what if someone's looking to get CBD, how can they be safe? So they need to find a company that does third party testing, obviously. What else? What do they need to be looking for?
They have to be aware that if the company is being honest or not, because they're not required to. I can say I've third party test my coffee, and unless there's regulations, I'm lying. Unless I'm checked and, and bound by rules, I could lie. So a person should ask for a clear certificate of analysis, a COA, and sometimes that's in the form of that, scan. What do you call those? Really tech challenge. Like a
Like the
scanning
barcode thing?
barcode.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you can scan it and have it yourself from the laboratory.
Right.
So you don't have to trust the company. I want a third party clean laboratory test, and I judge that for myself. But buyer beware. How many consumers are that actively aware of what they're putting in their body?
Right. Ultimately, don't get your CBD from a gas station just to be
Yeah,
safe
maybe
as well.
like don't buy your supplements from 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
That's a start. That's
And
not the end, but that's a start.
whether someone is a huge uh, component of CBD or not, what is something that everyone should be aware of because of this hemp ban?
I think people are okay, a couple of things. I think people, one, are disagreeing that it's a ban. There is no company that is going to float with 99 point whatever percent of their industry banned. This ban is zero point 0.4 milligrams THC in a container. So there are isolates that exist in the marketplace. 4%. Okay, so let's just step back for a second. 46 million Americans use CBD daily in this country. And I'm not including anyone under 21, and I'm not including animals. So that's just adults who use a daily dose of CBD. It's about 46 million people every day as a daily dose. 4% of that use an isolate. So that's a THC free product. They don't work, they don't have the same efficacy rate. That drug we were talking about is an isolate. They just don't have the same efficacy that a whole plant, a full spectrum from the ground, high in CBD, low in THC. Those plants have more efficacy. That is what is being banned, the full spectrum, the whole plant. The isolates, if you want to create a laboratory and isolate CBD, that's a scientific lab process. Those products can exist, but the companies that make them, the majority of what they are selling is the full spectrum. They might have a couple products that are THC free. The majority of people that use THC, the 4% that use THC free isolates, are probably like my husband, a firefighter, they're drug tested. Professional athletes, they're drug tested for THC, and so they have to use an isolate. So it sucks. It doesn't totally work. It doesn't work as well as the whole thing, but there is THC in full spectrum, and you might test positive in a drug test. You're not high,
Right.
but they can't use that and still maintain gainful employment. And so they use isolates, although they're not as efficacious.
So basically, right now, it's legal at 0.3%. And the ban would make it would have 0.3% THC is what is available in the bottle. And then what they're saying is the ban is requiring it to be 0.4%.
They're saying they changed the whole definition of hemp, which used to be 0.3% THC on a dry weight, like a farming basis, that everyone was pretty okay with that. People were trying to bump that up. Senators were trying to bump that up to 1%. That's way too low. The ban goes to a totally different a milligram. It goes to a final product milligram. So if you have a container of CBD and you're giving this to your dog, the maximum amount of THC with the new ban is zero point 0.4 milligrams of THC in the whole bottle. The industry wants thousands of milligrams in the whole bottle. No one's going to be able to afford to buy a bottle of high CBD, low THC, even if it's 1,000 milligrams of THC and get high. They're getting it on the street. They're getting it at a dispensary. There's many other ways to get high. That's much, much more affordable than almost like a medical supplement product. So the problem with that ban, it was done in an agricultural appropriations bill. This is not the place for final product milligrams. Final product milligrams written by numbers being picked out of thin air, zero point 0.4 milligrams, are being written by agricultural staffers. That belongs at the FDA. That belongs to Secretary Kennedy and the HHS. And that is, I don't want ag appropes writing my vitamin C or my melatonin supplement of final product. And that's the reason they snuck it in there because it would have never passed through regular order. And so it's a huge dilemma. It's a huge problem. Almost everyone agrees that that is not the jurisdiction for it. And we're working on fixes. We have fixes in place.
What's the current status of the ban?
The ban was signed into law. It was passed by Senate, House, and signed by the president to reopen the government. Had nothing to do with it. Was hundreds and hundreds of pages of crap in that bill. The ban goes into effect November 26th unless we fix it.
And how do we fix it?
Unless we fix it. Yeah. So we have a fix to get that done. We have, I would say, simultaneously, oddly, we've never been closer in 15 years to fixing this and getting what we need. And we've also never been in a more disastrous situation because that ban was signed into law and goes into effect. We have the president in support of fixing this. We have the HHS, FDA, everyone in the medical side of regulatory wants to fix this, and we have all of Congress wanting to fix this. They're well aware of what's going on. They want to fix it. The only thing we're missing is outreach, is consumer outreach. And I think a lot of people are arguing, is this a ban? Will my product still exist? If this were, and by the way, my daughter Charlotte, this was a 10-year solution for her. This was 10 years, no drugs, no pharmaceuticals, and no hospital trips.
Right.
We lived in the hospital. We lived on drugs.
Same with my Lily. I mean, we're talking the vet.
She took
Yeah,
like
nothing.
diet,
Just CBD, nothing else. Just CBD for
just CBD
years and
every day.
years.
She went to school. She rode a bike. She had friends. Like she lived a normal, non-medical life.
I mean, Lily didn't ride a bike, but she was really close this one time.
Well, I'd like to see that. That would be, then you'd really be famous, Lee. But it was absolutely her solution, and it was it's just a bit outrageous to think that we have to
Fight for this.
We have to
It
fight for
sucks. It's so
us.
frustrating that we're even needing to have this conversation. Like I mean, especially with, if I could just let it out, but all the crap and bullshit that is over the counter, the different types of candy that we're giving our children and the cereal. Like this natural supplement that should be available responsibly everywhere, for people and animals, and it just makes no sense that we're here right now. Like I
But
feel
we've
like,
come a long way. I mean, like
yeah, for sure, for
we've
sure.
come a long way because it was quite controversial 15 years ago, and now it's like I give this to my horse. I gave it to my horses.
I give it to my parrots. Every single one of my animals
Yeah.
at our sanctuary take it. All
Are
of
they
them,
high? Are
including
your animals
myself.
all stoned?
They're
Or
doing great.
yeah.
No, I mean, yeah, and I think that's the thing is people, often ask, "Will this get my dog high?" It's like, man, your dog can have the entire bottle of CBD. They shouldn't, but they still won't get high. I wouldn't get high if I chugged the whole bottle.
Yeah.
And I just, but you're right. It is getting better. People are learning. People are using it responsibly. And what can people do? Does emailing their local lawmakers, does calling and everything, does it actually make a difference? And how so?
So I'm sure you're going to post a link or share a link on how to take action. In 15 years, the thing I have learned is that it is very impactful. It is actually the only thing that works. It's how our government works. We're so blessed to live in a country where our voices matter. And here's how depressing this number. I'm going to give you a number, and this is how many phone calls or emails or both an office in Washington D.C. needs to put the issue like at the top of their pile. This is now a top of my pile issue, not bank, not pipelines, not immigration. 60 emails. 60 emails or 60 phone calls are more impactful if a senator gets 60 phone calls on an issue. And that is a top of the pile issue. I'm going to work on that issue. Those are my constituents that I'm going to work on that. So you're going to put a call to action link. You type in your address. It tells you who are your two senators, and it tells you who's your representative in the House. And you just call them, and it could be a 30-second message. Everything is counted. Every call,
What do they say? What would they say?
They might not even answer you. They might send you an email. Thank you for, it might be a form letter. You can send a form email.
And but what would they write? People who want to take action, what would they write? What would they say?
The most important thing I would say is your personal, say it one sentence, that's your personal reason. Why does this matter to you? 1 in 7 Americans use this. If it doesn't matter to you and you don't use CBD, or your dog doesn't use CBD, I guarantee you probably might know somebody. If you don't know somebody and you don't take it yourself, someday someone you care about might want to have access to this. We've found a solution in nature that is incredibly beneficial. It's so beneficial that we are being shut down by big money. That's how useful it is to our health. And so you're not a crazy salesman selling this. You're right. You're going to get shut down if the more impactful and medically useful your product is, the quicker you're going to get shut down.
Well, let's say you're listening to this and you're going to call your local senator and leave a voicemail, and your experience with CBD is your dog used to have terrible hip dysplasia, and now your dog is walking great again, and you're worried that this ban is going to take that away from your dog. So, what do you say when you call, or what does that phone call sound like, or that email sound like? What do
I
you
would,
say?
I would absolutely tell your personal story. From me, my personal story is, for Charlotte, this is a death sentence. This is absolutely, if this ban goes into effect in November, this is going to be a public health emergency. People need this for life or death. People need this for their pet so they can get up in the morning. And I would tell my personal story, and then I would tell them to fix it.
Because how much? What are I hate to ask this, but if this goes through, what are people going to do? Like, there's thousands of Charlottes out there, right, that depend on CBD, just like there's thousands of dogs and other animals. And what are, and even, and by the way, it's not just epilepsy. I mean, people, I use it now. I've had 2 spine surgeries. I use it for my back pain and to help me sleep. Like, what are people, like, what is everybody going to do? What is everyone going
Yeah,
to do?
when it was state by state, before we went to the federal government, when it was state by state, people would change their zip code. People had another option. They could move to a different state. If they ban this federally, there is no black market. There is nowhere to move to. You're not going to move out of the country to another country. This is a absolute catastrophe. It's a medical disaster, and that's just the thing. These 2 members of Congress are not giving here's where you can turn. Well, unless you have Dravet syndrome, you're not getting a prescription for that drug. And so for Charlotte, this is a death sentence. The only thing that she had in her arsenal, her daily medical arsenal, is a death sentence. And so we have fixes. They're on their desk. I work to lobby these solutions to get bills passed. We have a champion in Representative Morgan Griffith. He just filed a bill on Thursday night to fix this. We work with Senator Wyden, and they're working heavily in the Senate side to fix this and get regulation. What we need, and what I've proven how it works, call it grassroots. I think it's actually deeper roots than that. Those calls work. And my goal is to get 100 calls or emails on every member. That's 535 members of Congress, 100 in the Senate, and 435 in the House. If they were to get 100 calls on their desk, that's 53,500 emails or calls. I know it's just a number, but
And how long would each phone call be? 2 minutes?
about a minute.
A minute? Five? I mean, that should not be very difficult to get.
And it matters. It really does matter. And it may someday matter to people who aren't the 1 in 7 who use it. It's Advil.
Well, for some people, it's life and death.
Yeah. So it's absolutely, this is the hill I will die on. I've been working. It's all I do. I eat, sleep 24 hours a day, work on this. Not for my daughter, because I saw too much. I know too much. I'm watching this be a solution. And I also know who's against us. And I know who's fighting against us, and I will not let money win.
I try, as many people do right now in these times, try to find the good in everything. And one of the positives about this, as chaotic as it is, as much as it doesn't make sense that we're even in this situation, the gratitude I have for it, it's really brought the leaders in the hemp industry together. We're able to get vocal and loud about our stories, I was able to meet you. You were able to be introduced to me and my videos. And I have no doubt that with my community and with your advocacy and with all the amazing stories from Charlotte to Lily's, I know that we can make a difference together. And I could not agree more that it is a miracle supplement. And it feels so good to be able to speak with you and to be able to hear someone be so passionate about a supplement that I've been so passionate about for so long and share such similar stories. And I cannot thank you enough for your advocacy and for what you do for the hemp industry and for helping me give Lily the absolute best years of her life, Paige. So sincerely, thank you so much. And anything that I can do to help you and the hemp community, and hopefully anything my audience can do, we will every step of the way. I know you said it's the hill you're willing to die on, and I will be up on that hill fighting with you every step of the way.
Yeah, you already have been. Thank you so much. It's very meaningful. I hope that people are listening and feel touched by this. It's very meaningful to work on something that helps other people. But I think it's rare. I think every other thing that's going to come from nature, that's going to go through a supplement pathway, it's hard because we're sort of paving that first runway. Everything else is going to land on that, and so it's meaningful. Even after I'm long dead and gone, to my great great grandkids, this will be meaningful. It's worth it. It's worthwhile. So a phone call is not that hard.
It really isn't. And is there anything else you'd like to share about either CBD or the ban itself? Is there anything that we didn't touch on that you'd like to go over or cover with my audience?
No, I just think I know from my work in Washington, they're asking for outreach from consumers. They're asking to hear from you. What do you want them to do? Is how our government works. I'm a true testament. This industry is a true testament. It absolutely works. And I don't know if it's apathy or fear why people don't reach out, but sitting on your keyboard arguing about it in comments doesn't reach them. Sending an email, even if it's a form letter that I'm sure you're going to provide, these things reach their desk. They have to be marked, and it's how it works. It's really powerful, actually, how it works.
So, everyone, we will provide the link of how to find your local lawmakers. We'll make it very easy for you. Please take action. You can and you are what will make a difference here. So, please, we're asking you call or email. It will not take much of your time, and it could literally and will save lives, both people and their pets. Paige, thank you so much for everything you do. Thank you for joining me and educating both myself and my audience. And it's been a pleasure to connect with you, and I look forward to growing with you.
Yeah, thanks, Lee. I'm gonna go stalk your Instagram page now.
I just posted the Sanctuary tour. Check it out. I think you'll really like it. It's like a 20-minute video. It's awesome.
I can't wait to see it. Thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank you deeply, and I'll talk with you soon.